Our next speaker is Rodney Serkowski, speaking on behalf of the Pirate Party. Thank you.
G'day everyone. We're all here today supporting Wikileaks for a multitude of reasons. The most profound reason is our right to freely access information, free from the intimidation of government. The repercussions and responses to Wikileaks have showed how important network freedom is, how important it is that we now make moves to demand substantive changes to protect and strengthen our fundamental freedoms. In the past week, we have seen the US Department of Justice step it up a notch in their campaign against Wikileaks. They have subpoenaed the private details and messages of people involved with WikiLeaks. The subpoena could potentially cover all people that interact with WikiLeaks through social media. Of particular interest was the private data of Birgitte Jonsdottir, a member of the Icelandic Parliament. This McCarthyist intimidation of free speech activists is a disgusting affront to our democracy. It is frankly disturbing that the US government thinks its wanton disrespect for journalists, established conventions of parliamentary immunity and democratic principles is at all acceptable. The economic terrorism of Visa, MasterCard and PayPal continue and is yet another example of the types of intimidation used by the US administration. If you've been following the progress of the Tunisian situation, you'll have noticed how important WikiLeaks is, how important a free and open internet is. The Tunisian government is an utterly corrupt, despotic regime that heavily censored all media, including WikiLeaks, and heavily restricted the freedom of expression. The people in Tunisia know this. The WikiLeaks cables simply confirm those whispers. And now we are witnessing a revolution, the Jasmine Revolution. For us in the Pirate Party, we have watched on from Australia very closely. 4 members of the Tunisian Pirate Party were arrested without warrant and held without charge. We are told 1 was beaten by police. They have been active in disseminating censorship-breaking software, ensuring that Tunisians could access information and that they could maintain communication with the outside world. Just last night, Tunisians were protesting in the city of Tunis, in the city centre of Tunis, an unprecedented demonstration demanding great civil freedoms and the resignation of Ben Ali, who has now escaped to Italy. We protest here today about more than just WikiLeaks. We demonstrate in support of fundamental freedoms that are being marginalised by our governments. Freedom of the press, the freedom to communicate and associate freely without fear or intimidation. Freedom from censorship. If we don't protest, if we don't demand changes that ensure and strengthen these rights, we will lose them. The campaign against WikiLeaks by almost all governments is part of a broader and more systemic attempt to control information, to control one of the greatest revolutionary mediums for political discourse in history, the internet. The broader attack on the internet manifests itself in many ways. Once applauded citizen journalists and bloggers are now info-terrorists. A network endeared for its resistance to censorship is now seeing governments increasingly move to block those websites. Fundamental rights like privacy are being tossed to the wind with plans for wide-scale data retention. By coming here today, by standing in solidarity with demonstrators across the globe, we have said to our governments that we don't accept this path. We don't accept the persecution of whistleblowers. We don't accept the marginalisation and intimidation of political dissidents. As the saying goes, that which can be destroyed by the truth should be. Thank you.
Just before we have our final speaker for the day, I'd like to read out a statement from Philip Adams from Late Night Live. He couldn't make it today due to being on holidays, I think, but he did write a statement to read out. First right-wing bloggers called us for Assange's assassination. Now voices in Washington want the death penalty on the table if they can get him into a US court. I'm proposing we put him up for sainthood, but after the WikiLeaks on the Vatican, that's probably out of the question. 13 years ago, we decided that Late Night Live, heard around Australia and the world, needed a cyberspace correspondent to tell us what was going on in that parallel universe. So the well-informed Suelette Dreyfus came on board as a regular commentator. That year, she introduced me to a young hacker called, yes, Julian Assange, a leading member of what she described as the underground. Now that's a term with very proud associations, particularly with those in France who bravely fought against Nazi occupation. And it seemed a bit of a stretch between blowing up railway tracks and hacking into computers. Nonetheless, even I could see the potential of this new era of subversion to fight the mighty powers and monoliths in politics, finance, media, and even religion. So when Julian contacted me a few years back to outline his ideas for Wikileaks, I was delighted to join his advisory board. As I've been pointing out to the CIA and others in the spooks trade, while Julian hasn't been asking me for advice, I'm happy to maintain my unswerving support for what he and Wikileaks have done to embarrass our political masters. The big game has changed forever. The mighty will always look over their shoulders and find it harder to lie. Or at least they'll find new ways to do it. Democracy is being democratised. Tyranny is exposed, and millions who have been fed bullshit for generations are now able to confirm their suspicions. Any attempt to hand over Assange to the US or any other country seeking to silence Wikileaks must be resisted. The Australian governmental attacks on Wikileaks are a disgrace. Thank you. Signed, Philip Adams.